G'day, I'm Bruce and I'm here today to see if I can get this Maruka off-road track buggy going. It started out life as a track dumper where the back part actually tipped back that way, and then it was converted for sugarcane work. This drives along beside the cane harvester. As the cane harvester cuts the cane and blows the thrash and chops it up into little pieces, it loads this up, and then this can drive off beside a semi-trailer, and the bin lifts up like this and goes right up and it tips into the truck. The bin's on the truck. I think each one of these bins carry about 5 tonne of cane. There's the control panel. It looks like it would have been built in Japan by the look of the stickers. It's got a lot of Japanese stickers on it. I've got no idea what they say. There's the operator console, and it's got this very unusual T drive. Change direction, you must just twist it like that, and I guess that's probably forward and reverse like that. So pretty well everything's done on the single lever. Quite an unusual setup with these rubber tracks. They're about nearly a metre wide. Toft in Bundaberg, they built a similar sort of an outfit, but they had their tracks which was steel. Their platform was a D4 Caterpillar setup. If you look in there, you can see all the cane thrash just on the other side of the track. Where these things really shine is in wet weather like we've had lately, when they go to get the cane off. If they're just using, say, four-wheel drive tractors, towing a bin around. Of course, the cane harvester always has tracks on it, so what they do then, if it gets too wet, then they'll use this to run along beside the cane harvester. The cane harvester's already got tracks on it all the time, most cane harvesters. So anyway, this setup here, when it gets wet, they can still do the job. They can still cut the cane, and this can still shift the cane off the property. You can get cane harvesters that have wheels as well, but what they do, they have a bin out tractor, that's probably 150, 200 horsepower tractor, four-wheel drive, but when it gets really wet, the cane harvester can still operate, but the bin out tractor can't. So then they'll bring this buggy in, then that can work on the wet conditions with the harvester. It looks like Anderson and Son must have made the bin. You can see their name up here. They were based in Hervey Bay, from what I can remember. If you look in here, you can see the bin is hydraulically operated, and it lifts up and it tips sideways straight into the back of a semi-trailer. You can see with these tracks, the idea is to have very low ground pressure. So you're spreading the weight over a big area, and that way the thing can stay up on top if the ground's very boggy. There's a shot looking under the back of it. That'll give you an idea just how big these tracks really are. With all the wet weather we've been having, they're having a farm clean-up, so this buggy might come in handy. If they get stuck anywhere, it'd be a pretty good thing for yanking something out of a bog in wet weather, I'd reckon. We'll see if we can get it going today, and if it's needed in any sort of a recovery situation, it'll be right to go. You've only just got to drive off any of these roads and you could get bogged very easily, which is not good in any type of clean-up operation. This is the engine cover up here, and it looks like it's going to be pretty tight to lift up. It must be jammed down, I think. I don't know where that's supposed to go to, but just going to stick a bit of grease where this bonnet is sticking. Right on this edge here, that's why it's so hard to lift up, I reckon. We've got the bonnet tied back. If we had that stick down, well, the bonnet would only be on about that angle, so you wouldn't be able to see too much. It's got a reasonable size 6-cylinder Mitsubishi engine in it with a turbocharger on it. I don't know what it'll be. It could be 150 horsepower, maybe more. Here's the dipstick. I'm just going to check the oil now. Yep, looks like there's heaps in it. That's it, right down where it belongs. Looks like the breather pipe here's had maybe a piece of rubber hose between there and there. I think those are both the same size, so that's what it would have had originally, I'd say. I'll just check the radiator next. Yep, it's got heaps of water in it. Looks like that'd be fuel. Pretty good setup with a strainer. Yep, definitely fuel. And that must be the hydraulic tank, the other one. Nicely made. It's probably got a sight glass on it. I thought it might have had a dipstick on the end, but it hasn't. It's got a nice little strainer here to keep any dirt out that accidentally gets spilt. Yeah, if you look down inside, you'll see the hydraulic oil. Nice little strainer they have sitting in the hydraulic tank. I always reckon when you're working on a machine and you see they've got these extra strainers where people pour the oil and whatever in, I reckon that's a really good idea. I reckon that's, you see that, I think straight away it's a quality machine. And they've done the same over here with the diesel, because you never know, some people don't care. They just pick up a hose, put some diesel in, it might be dropped in the dirt just before that. Look at that, that's an excellent idea. Nice little strainer. If anybody does go to put any dirt in, well, they'll be caught in there, any of the bigger stuff anyway. You probably can't tell, but it is a fair way down on diesel, so we might give it a bit of a top up with some more diesel. Just going to put some fuel doctor in first. We don't know how long it would have been since it's been dosed with anything, so we'll give it a shot of the fuel doctor. Put the fuel doctor over there for the time being. Just going to get the siphoning now with a little jiggle doober. Right, we're away. Yeah, when I think back to people like my grandfather that had a small cane farm, and he used to walk along behind the horse and single furrow plough, and the way things have advanced today, if he came back now he'd find it hard to believe how things have changed. And back then, cane cutters, they used to call it whole stick. They'd cut the stool down, that's a technical word. Some people would cut the tops off. They would cut the stool, then they'd turn it around and cut the tops off and throw it on the ground. Other people would just cut the stool, throw it down, and then come along afterwards. They'd lay all their cane down in a line, and then they would come along and they would cut all the tops off as it's laying down. But I would say that if it's on rocky ground, they'd probably cut the stool, and then they'd probably cut the tops and throw it down. Because if it's on rocky ground and you go along later and cut all the tops off, well, you'd be cutting on rocks. And that would blunt their cane knife. And of course they all had a file in their back pocket. As they went along, if they hit a stone or a couple of stones, they'd get the file out, touch the blade back up again. If my grandfather came back today and saw a machine like this and a track cane harvester that could operate in wet weather, he would be amazed. He would probably have a smile on his face to see that the world has advanced that far. See if we can get every last drop out. Not much more to go. It's a terrific little invention. Siphon hose with that little rattler on the end there. Just has a little marble in the end there. See how it's still holding the diesel. I don't know whether you can see there's actually a marble in the end of that. And when I go like this, I'll tip that down. And I don't know whether you can see the marble. As I lower it down, it doesn't have a spring in it. You'll see the marble drop down. And of course, when you wriggle it like that, up and down, it's like a valve on the end, and that starts it siphoning. The little marble's just sitting there like that. We've checked the oil, we've checked the radiator water, we've checked the hydraulic tank. Looks to be fairly high with hydraulic oil. We put 20 litres of diesel in the tank, and the next thing is we're going to check the batteries. There's the batteries there, located there. And you can see the end's pretty burnt. That looks a bit dirty looking there. So we'll try and put some new ends on. This other one over here is the positive. Well, it needs an end putting on it. You can see the bits of lead and that splattered around on the battery. I think they've just been using, that's probably an old battery, and this is probably another battery they've just put in there, so I take it it's 12 volts. Righto, will it come undone or not? Yep, look at that, pretty easy. I thought I was going to be in for a fight there. Looks pretty dirty. I've wiped off most of the grunge on it. Now we're starting to see a bit of shiny copper. Which way is going to be the best? Probably that way. It's got its neck twisted pretty hard. Different size. I need a 15. That might fit. That will fit. It's about the only way you can really get them tight. I'll just put some grease on this battery bolt. A lot of times they'll all rust up and that because the acid gets on them, and when they get all rusty then you can't do anything with them. It's going to be the positive terminal next. They always have them done up a little bit so the bolts don't come undone. Might just bend that racket back a bit more. Looks a bit better. Put that back in there. Right, there's some grease on the belt. Bit around the head, save it rusting up. I'll just show you with the terminals. See how it's got this bit of a notch on one side. That side's level, this side's got that step. The head of the bolt always goes in that way, and that way it can't turn. So when the nut goes on there, that way you need one spanner to tighten it up. You can see they've had trouble here before with bits of lead blowing off. There's hunks blowing off around there. That's all bits of lead. This one here is the same because of those bad terminals. We're talking about posts on batteries. Over the years I've heard all different sorts of stories. Some people say that the posts on batteries are hollow and the acid can come up over a period of time, can come up through the centre and then out. Shane always says it'll be the positive one. If there's one that is making bad contact or it's got corrosion on it, Shane will say immediately, it'll be that positive. The positive one's always the one with the corrosion. And he's probably right most of the time too, I'd say. Yeah, some people say that the acid can come out around the edge, around there like that. I'm just going to use the battery brush here now. See how it's got all the whiskers in there? Going to put that on the terminals and turn that around and give them a clean. Same on this one, I'll give him a clean too. Now I'm going to give him a bit of a wipe around there now. So the idea is if you put a layer of grease around, just where the lead meets the rubber or the plastic, depending on the type of battery, the theory is you get a bit of grease like that and you run that around on the base. Run that right around on the base. Some people even grease the actual post. If you can run a layer of grease around that base, they say that will stop the acid coming out of the battery and working its way up. I think probably the perfect situation would be don't grease the whole terminal because that might stop it making good contact. But if you've greased around the base of the terminal, then when you fit the terminal on, clamp it up, then put more grease over the top of it then. That way you know where it's clamped up tight on the lead, it's going to make perfect contact. You've got a bit more grease around there, that'll stop any corrosion or anything growing there. The other day when I was working on the Acco, getting it ready to sell when the tilt tray truck was going to turn up, I was in a bit of a hurry and a man commented on there about how I should have put the positive terminal on first and did the bolt up on it, and he's perfectly right. He is dead right about that. I'll show you the reason why. See, if I put the positive terminal on there now, and I haven't put anything on this end, so that means if I short this across onto the body while I'm tightening that up, nothing will happen. Nothing will happen because there's nothing on this other end. So the chap was dead right. So the theory is, I've got a ratchet ring here and it's not going to work, so I have to use the open ender. Right, so the theory is that bit's done now. Now, when I put this end on and I tighten it up, I'll get the right one yet, not that one, this one here. When I put that on, if I earth that now, it's already at earth potential. See how it's bolted onto the chassis over here? So that's the proper way to do it. The man's right. Positive end first, then the negative end. We just found out that this lead here, which disappears down around the back there somewhere, is actually the end of this lead here. And that's what they used to jump from on a 24 volt system from one battery to the other. So what we'll do away with this big long lead we've got here, and we'll just go and put one of those on. Then it won't be so confusing for the next person that comes along to work on the thing. They'll say, right, that's it, 24 volt, right to go. That one's tight. Put some grease on that. Another bolt. needs a bit of grease putting on it. pretty stiff. Just going to put some WD-40 on here. I'm having a bit of trouble getting that bolt out. I'll have to work it backwards and forwards a bit, I think. Right. It's a bit burnt looking too. Now the sandpaper. Right, grease the bolt up. Righto, there's our positive. Like the man said, do the positive up first, the negative up last. Right, that's our positive, that's our negative. Everything looks okay. Double check everything. Yep, it's power there now, is there? Yep. The procedure is to start this machine. The knife switch has got to be closed and that little red wire has got to be touched on the side of it to make it start. You can see now the knife switch is down, we've got power to the dash. I'm just going to sand the side of this knife switch. This is where they put the little wire on the side there to get it to run. And I thought, well, if that was nice and shiny, it might just make the job a little bit easier. I know, we'll just dock a bit off the end there. The argument, the right way to have the side cutters. Is it this way or is it the other way? Right, we've got that done. I'm just going to spray the end of the throttle stopper. It's that stiff you can hardly work it. It's going somewhere, but the cable's probably a couple of metres long. Oh well, we know it works anyway. Yep, I can see the throttle moving down there. Yep, and we'll probably give it a bit of throttle if we go into start mode. We've got that off. We're going to turn the key on now. Got a couple of lights on the dash. I'm going to touch this back out down on the bottom over here to see if it's going to start. Yep, running. Pretty good. Yeah, amazing. Didn't it start easy? About the easiest starting motor I've ever seen, I reckon. Just let it warm up a bit now, and then we'll shut it down, and then we'll put the bonnet down, and we'll put the other cover down. There's a cover that goes over the batteries and the hydraulic tank and the fuel tank. So we'll just let it warm up a little bit. Certainly a nice running engine. This one's got a broken hinge on that end. So I'm going to put some WD-40 on this end because I don't want to be the person that snaps this one. That one's broken, so. So far so good. Got a handle on top here. I'm never going to get that because it's too far off. That hinge is broken on that side, so. Righto, we're right to go. So we're going to open the throttle up a little bit. Going to close the knife switch and turn the key on and it's start. Contact. Right. Pull back. I know you would probably like to see me tip the bin, but I can't do that because the farmers were just about finishing their work using this buggy and the ram started leaking. You can see up the back there where they've got a towel or something wrapped around the ram so we definitely can't tip the bin. But it's been a pretty exciting ride anyway, driving something that can do forward and reverse and backward and forward all on the one lever. That's certainly something different to drive. But a lot of farmers call them moon buggies. You know, if they talk about moon buggies, well, they're talking about one of these on tracks. It feels very stable on its feet, and it feels like it would just about crawl across a riverbed. Anywhere that was really boggy, it would be just the right sort of machine in boggy conditions. And if any of you would like to see a vehicle like this do a rescue, towing some other vehicle out, well, just leave a comment. We might be able to see what's going to happen in the future. So let us know what you think about the moon buggy. And I think it's going to rain again here in a minute. The wind's blowing about 30 knots and we're starting to get a few light spits. And until next time, thank you very much for watching.